On suicide. Before committing suicide, I would like to be given some real assurance of being. I would like to be sure about death. Life appears to me merely as consent to the apparent legibility of things and their coherence in the mind. I no longer feel like the irreducible crossroads of things. Death the healer heals by severing us from nature. Yet what if I am only a sink full of pain things do not flow out of? If I kill myself, it won't be to destroy myself, but to rebuild myself. For me, suicide would only be a means of violently reconquering myself, of brutally invading my being, of anticipating God's unpredictable approach. I would reintroduce my designs into nature through suicide. For the first time, I would give things the shape of my will. I would free myself from the conditioned reflexes of my organs, which are so badly correlated with my ego. Then life would not just be an absurd accident, where I think what I am told to think. Then I would select my thought in the direction of my faculties, tendencies, and reality. I would put myself halfway between beauty and ugliness, good and evil. I would put myself in suspension, without any inclinations, neutral, poised between good and evil temptations. For life is no solution in itself. Life has no sort of chosen, accepted, or self-determined existence. It is just a series of desires and opposing forces, petty contradictions which succeed or miscarry according to the circumstances of detestable chance. Evil, like genius and madness, is unequally apportioned in all men. Good, like evil, is a product of circumstances and a more or less active catalyst. It is certainly abject to be created and live and sense yourself irrevocably predestined in the darkest corners of your mind, down to the most unthought of ramifications of your being. After all, we are only trees, and it is probably written somewhere in some crook of my family tree that I will kill myself on a given day. The very concept of freedom to commit suicide falls like a cut-down tree. I create neither the time nor the place nor the circumstances of my suicide. I did not even invent the idea of it. Would I feel it when it uproots me? It may be that at that moment my being will dissolve, but if it will remain whole, how would my damaged organs react? With what non-existent organs would I register the laceration of this suicide? I feel death sweep over me like a torrent, like an instantaneous flow of lightning whose charge I cannot envisage. I feel death laden with pleasures and whirling labyrinths. Where is the idea of myself in all this? But suddenly God appeared like a fist, like a scythe of cutting light. I voluntarily cut myself off from life. I wanted to stem the tide of fate. This God has disposed of me to the point of absurdity. He kept me alive in a void of denials and furious self-disavowals. He destroyed everything in me, right down to the last surge of my conscious, sentient life. He reduced me to a walking automaton, but an automaton who feels the rupture of his unconscious self. And thus I wanted to prove I was alive. I wanted to get back in touch with the resonant reality of things. I wanted to break with my fate. And what did God say to that? I had no feeling of life, and the flow of all moral concepts was like a dry river in my veins. Life was not an object or form to me. It had become a series of rationalizations. But these rationalizations never got off the ground and only freewheeled. They were like possible diagrams within me which my willpower could not light on. Even to arrive at this suicidal state, I must wait for my ego to return. I need the free play of all the articulations of my being. God set me down in despair as in a constellation of stalemates whose radiance terminates in me. I can neither live nor die, but am unable not to wish to live or die. And all men are like me.